How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman. Thanks for joining me. And the topic for this particular broadcast is one word and its variations. And that word is something that I know all of you have heard, which is the word information. Now, lots of discussion about information technology, information management, and information. So let me start off with the word information. Information is different than data. We look at information as processed data. So if you have bad data and you process it to turn it into information, what are you going to have? Bad information. So the word information is actually a composite. It's the actions that are involved within the understanding that it's acting upon data. So the root of information is data itself. So garbage that is processed that turns into garbage information is not what we're looking for. We're looking for information. In other words, things that are processed that provide us with value. That is also different than the word technology that is attached to the word information, and also the word management that is attached to the word information. We have to recognize that all of those phrases are different. The objective is to create value from processed data, parentheses, information, close parentheses, create value, and that's progress. That's what people are looking for. Information that provides value to yourself or to the organization. So the question is, what is your strategy for creating value with information? And so what I just mentioned was it starts with good data. Good data. And that's something that most organizations, I know, understand the phrase, but it is really hard to get good data because good data isn't on the internet for general use. In other words, it's an incredible asset. It's an asset. So the data is the asset, the engine, the oil, so to speak, of organizations that is used with processes to create information that creates value to the organization and to its stakeholders. And that's really the objective that we're looking at. Now, management of that, which is very important, talks about sort of like the whole life cycle of data, its processes that turns into information. Creating the data or obtaining the data and knowing its obviously provenance, in other words, where it comes from. Organizing that data so that it can be stored and retrieved. Managing it, in other words, some of it can become stale, some of it needs certain types of security, some of it needs certain types of massaging, if I can use that phrase, all sorts of things that you can do there. Of course, storing it, that's technology. Where it's stored is not as important as recognizing that it needs to be stored with some kind of integrity so that if you put something in a certain spot and you get it out again, you know it has the same state, so to speak. In other words, it hasn't been tampered with. Of course, retrieving it, and then finally the use. And some people call it create, retrieve, update, delete, or something like that, the CRUD phrase that you sometimes hear. So how do we do this? How do we do this? Step one, get some data. Step two, classify that data only after you know it has integrity and is, quote, accurate. Get that data. Make sure that it is good. Step 2, store it in a structure that is retrievable, and that is a classification system. And then 3, process that data to perform essentially a concept that we now call information, and that information is measured as to the value received by the organization and its stakeholders. So hopefully this short broadcast untangles some of these phrases that you sometimes hear. A good data strategy is fundamental to a good information strategy. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.